G'day fans of the GBA, it is TheVerd back here again. Welcome to week 5 of Pivotal Moments. I'm of course not alone, I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
G'day, my name is BillStandish. Hoping you guys are having a fantastic, Friday morning, night, whatever time this goes up.
For us it's Friday Arvo. I am completely stuffed, but we are going to get this done, people. So, let's roll in straight away to our first game between the Milwaukee Bucks and the New Orleans Pelicans, and John had an amazing set, I think, for this game. Completely pivotal because it just dealt with what Steve, or Badlerek, thought was his best counter to Bulu in Kartana by having the sub, and the HP Fire was able to get rid of such a huge threat to his team, and Bulu just put in the work once again.
On that topic, Burke, hosting Pick'em Crew, at the start of the episode, he said, John can bring HP Fire to Bulu, and that actually came, so that's very cool that happened. But one thing I want to mention is the trick room that Steve has brought for the third time, I believe. Of course, he set it up for his Harry armor, but John was able to play around it effectively with this sub Bulu, which he brought. So, again, I don't think Steve has really found his niche with Trick Room. Maybe in the next few weeks he might be able to try and make something work, but clearly nothing's living up to that Trick Room Slowbro that he had last season.
One thing I would like to just point out as another moment is Steve actually played really well with Zoroark early doors. Like, being able to predict the Skarmory to come in, getting off that flamethrower, although it wasn't like huge in the long run of things, it was still really good use of Zoroark. So I would like to, give Steve credit for that. But we are going to move on to our next game, which is the San Diego Chim Chargers against the Alola Athletic. A really solid game. I really enjoyed the momentum switches from both of them, like always trying to go for U-turn and switching into Mons to take advantage. I think MB just did it a lot better than Callum. Especially late game, he was able to pressure him into situations where Callum had to choose sacks for things, and it just led to MB getting the victory.
One other thing we want to mention is Envy's great use of late game rocks. He was able to pressure Crobat so it couldn't really ever defog, and so once Landorus got his rocks up, it was able to put a lot of chip damage on a lot of Callum's mons, meaning that the Kabutops late game could really clean up.
On to our next game, we have the San Francisco Arcaniners up against the Tampa Bay Luxrays. One really big moment, I guess, in this game was the Vacuum Wave rolls with Mew. If they had gone George's way, this definitely could have gone a lot differently, especially that roll on Miltank. That was a massive one. If that had gone his way, it might have been GG there, but regardless, it was still a really good battle.
On the other sort of less rolly sort of side of the game, there was a lot of hazard stack in this game. George got his rocks up quite early. Mono chose to get his spikes and rocks up also quite early. They were able to whittle down both teams, which could have affected some of the rolls that happened in the game.
On to our next game here, and we have the Pittsburgh Piratas up against the Borgia Donphan. One thing I really want to point out, as a person like myself, I really pride myself on team building, and one thing that I was very surprised by, and Lars even mentioned it in his video, was that Tup didn't really bring much for McGinn. And I know McGinn is a very, very tough Pokemon to wall, for sure, and Tup did have some good offensive mons, but not bringing Chandelure, which might have been his best check on his team since it resisted both stab moves, was a real surprise to me. Like, obviously he could have brought Blissey, but Lars did predict that with the Brick Break on the McGinn, but I just feel that, Tup's prep for probably the most potent threat right now in draft format was a little bit lackluster.
On the other side, we want to talk about Tup. In the second turn of the game, he predicted the U-turn coming off the Tornadus, which was Scarfed. He earlier in the season encountered this with a Mienshao, so Lars over-predicted thinking he would swap out, but Tup was ballsy and was able to stay in, which gained him a bit of damage on Lars's switch-in.
On to our next game here, and we have the Detroit Steelwings up against the San Jose Sharpedos. One big thing from this game just revolves around the hazards and how they were dealt. I guess on the hazard side of things, Tom was really good at bringing the Nidoqueen with the Stealth Rocks and the Toxic Spikes, I believe, this week. One set that I absolutely love with Nidoqueen. It was really good at pressuring Crimson's team and just overall put a lot of dents in it.
Nidoqueen, of course, was able to deal with both of Crimson's hazard-removing options, but one thing that sort of annoyed me in the game is at points he said, okay, I'm going to send in Serena and I'm going to Rapid Spin, and then he sent in Serena and he clicked Light Screen, or he clicked Desynthesis, so he never really took the option to get rid of the hazards on his field, which whittled his wall core, meaning that he lost the game to Tom.
Moving on to our next game, we have the Utah Jazmine up against the San Francisco Giants. One big thing that I found from this game was the offensive Zapdos. Like, Zapdos always, people see it as more of a bulkier mon, but this week it was used fantastically as an offensive threat. Geo didn't really have too much for it, and it just put in a ton of work. So let's move on to the next game then, which is the Free State Toracats up against the Florida Gators. Now, there were a lot of talking points here, so shortening this down is going to be hard. One thing I would just like to quickly, just slightly talk about is, I think I'm going to get it's underappreciation. Duncan's underappreciation of Pukemuku. Acting like, oh, what does this thing do to my team? What does it do, Duncan? It walls your entire team. That's pretty much what Pukemuku did this game, and I mean, obviously it's a threat that he is not familiar with, but he had the Carmine Keldeo. I think if you replace Carmine with something like potentially a, maybe not substitute because of Whimsicott, but something like Toxic to be able to wear down that Pukemuku, because Pukemuku obviously can run Toxic as well, but Keldeo could have Taunt. There were a lot of avenues that he could have gone with to deal with Pukemuku in this game, and he just unfortunately didn't really have any way to break it.
One thing I want to say on that Pukemuku, it was able to baton pass quite well, bringing in Heatran a lot against Duncan's Metagross, which was then able to get a lot of damage off the Keldeo until it was just able to pick up a kill every single time it came in. But the other thing we want to talk about is obviously Duncan sacking his Alolan Marowak turn 1. I think the quote was, he'll probably go for Earthquake here, but I'm just going to stay in anyways. So he lost a huge Mon that could have put in so much work for him this game, as he said.
Basically, Duncan's premise was he kind of expected Gator to overpredict to maybe go for Rocks. He was going to try and go for that Flame Charge. Unfortunately, it wasn't, like, even if it had worked out in his favor, I don't think it was a smart move, just because Gator could have just gone out to Pukemuku. Like, Mamo probably still would have stayed alive. As ballsy a play as it is from Duncan, it just wasn't a calculated one. But regardless, let's move on to our last game of the week, which is the St. Louis Rampage against the Philadelphia Sizzles. I guess the big talking point of this one was the crit turn 1 from Volcanion on the Eel, which obviously knocked it out. Sucked for Dan, obviously, hacks happens. Then again, he came off basically clutching a win last week because of 2 full powers, so I guess apples and oranges.
One other thing we want to talk about is Kyurem Black this game. It put in a lot of work. It was able to sub up on the Toxapex. And then when Dan sent in his Clefable, he was able to break the sub with the Moonblast. And I believe he said something along the lines of, you know, I could go on a Victini expecting the Iron Head and save my Clefable, but there's no point. Honestly, I think I disagree with that, as Kyurem was able to put in so much work in that game, even living a choice-banded Brave Bird from the Staraptor.
Yeah, basically, like, if you have, like, a Scarm or a Rhydon, then it's expected for you to be able to live it, but if you don't have any way to resist normal or flying stab, and you're able to live a reckless banded Brave Bird, like, that's just insane, man.
And that will wrap it up for Pivotal Moments this week, but we do want to talk about last week's Pivotal Moments and which ones you voted to be the most pivotal. So this week it was actually a two-way tie. The equal first play was Golbat living on 10 HP against the Sneasel in the Utah Jazmines versus the New Orleans Pelipers match.
And the other equal top play for this week was the Slowking getting paralyzed twice on the Victini and the Staraptor.
So in the description, follow the Google form and vote on this week's most pivotal moment, as well as what you think the overall pivotal moment for the season is. Will it be the Slowking getting paralyzed, the Golbat living on 10 HP, or will it be the Raw Druddigon and Tita used by Callum in his game against the Milwaukee Swordsbucks? Make sure you vote in that, and make sure to leave any pivotal moments you think we have missed in the comment section below.
But that's going to do it for us, guys. We hope you have enjoyed. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the GBA channel, and go check out all of the coaches and analysts. But that's going to do it for us. I'm Verd, that's Bill, and we're out of here.